Every day, you navigate a world of hidden motives, unspoken emotions, and invisible forces that shape human behavior. You wonder why that colleague consistently undermines you despite their friendly smile. You're baffled when a relationship suddenly turns sour for reasons you can't grasp. You feel manipulated in situations, but can't pinpoint exactly how or why. What if you could see through these mysteries and understand the true drivers of human behavior? This is the promise of Robert Greene's monumental work, The Laws of Human Nature, a deep exploration of the hidden forces that govern our actions, decisions, and relationships. Drawing on centuries of wisdom from psychology, history, philosophy, and the lives of remarkable individuals, Greene unveils patterns of behavior that have remained consistent throughout human history. The most dangerous person, Greene reveals, is not the obvious enemy, but the one who doesn't understand themselves. Self-knowledge forms the foundation of all power and success in human affairs. Without it, we remain prisoners of our unconscious patterns, projecting our own flaws onto others while remaining blind to the forces driving our own behavior. Consider your deepest insecurities, the ones you'd never willingly reveal. Greene argues these are precisely what you're most likely to project onto others. The colleague you suspect of incompetence may be triggering your own fears of inadequacy. The partner you accuse of emotional unavailability might be mirroring your own difficulty with vulnerability. This shadow self, the disowned aspects of our character, sabotages relationships and clouds judgment until we bring it into conscious awareness. But self-awareness is just the beginning. True power comes from understanding others through their behavior rather than their words. People rarely express their real motivations directly, not because they're intentionally deceptive, but because these motivations often operate below conscious awareness. Greene identifies distinct character types that appear consistently throughout human societies. The envious, for instance, mask their resentment behind a facade of praise while secretly working to undermine those they perceive as superior. The grandiose create an inflated self-image to compensate for deep insecurity, leading to volatile behavior when their fragile ego faces reality. The aggressive passive appears accommodating on the surface while harboring deep hostility they express through subtle sabotage and resistance. By learning to identify these types through behavioral cues rather than words, you gain an almost supernatural ability to anticipate their actions before they themselves know what they'll do. This isn't manipulation, but profound empathy, seeing people as they truly are, with all their flaws and contradictions, rather than as you wish them to be. Our emotions, Greene reveals, often follow patterns that have evolved over millions of years. When we feel slighted, for instance, our rational mind can be hijacked by a primal response designed for tribal societies where reputation meant survival. This emotional regression explains why otherwise intelligent people make catastrophically bad decisions when their pride is wounded or their status threatened. The antidote is emotional self-control, not suppression, but the ability to create space between feeling and action. By observing your emotions without immediately acting on them, you develop the superpower of rational response in situations where others are driven by unconscious impulses. As Greene puts it, those who master their emotions aren't controlled by them. They transform emotional energy into fuel for creative achievement. Perhaps most provocatively, Greene explores the toxic aspects of human groups, how our social nature, essential for survival, also makes us vulnerable to groupthink, conformity, and dangerous polarization. We evolved to prize belonging above truth, making us susceptible to irrational beliefs when they're shared by our tribe. The most independent thinking often meets the fiercest resistance, as Galileo discovered when presenting evidence that contradicted religious orthodoxy. The solution isn't isolation, but calculated independence, maintaining enough mental distance from any group to see its blind spots while still benefiting from collaboration. This stance requires courage, as going against group opinion triggers primordial fears of rejection. Yet history reveals that the most influential individuals were precisely those who could think beyond the constraints of their era's conventional wisdom. Power dynamics permeate all human interactions, though we prefer to pretend otherwise. Greene strips away this pretense, showing how dominance and submission patterns established in childhood reappear in adult relationships, organizations, and societies. By recognizing these dynamics, we can stop unconsciously recreating damaging patterns and instead build relationships based on mutual respect rather than unconscious power struggles. Time reveals another dimension of human nature, our shifting attitudes as we move through life's phases. The rebellious energy of youth gives way to ambition and practical concerns in middle age, followed by a search for legacy and meaning in later years. By understanding these natural progressions, we can align our goals with our life stage rather than fighting against it, while also gaining perspective on others whose priorities differ due to their position in life's journey. At the core of Greene's philosophy lies a paradox. By accepting the irrational aspects of human nature, including our own, we become more rational in our responses. When we stop expecting purely logical behavior from fundamentally emotional beings, we develop realistic strategies for influence, collaboration, and personal growth. The truly powerful individual, Greene suggests, doesn't fight against human nature but works with it. Rather than lamenting people's tendency toward bias, short-sightedness, and emotional reactivity, they account for these tendencies in their approach. Instead of wishing people were different, they accept reality and adapt their strategies accordingly. This pragmatic approach extends to self-development. Rather than pursuing perfection, Greene advocates integrating our contradictions, accepting that we contain both selfishness and altruism, rationality and irrationality, creation and destruction. The ideal isn't eliminating our darker aspects, but channeling them productively while preventing their destructive expression. Consider how the greatest leaders throughout history transformed potentially destructive traits into strengths. Abraham Lincoln's melancholy gave him uncommon empathy for suffering. Steve Jobs' obsessive perfectionism drove revolutionary product design. Martin Luther King Jr.'s righteous anger fueled his fight for justice, while his discipline prevented it from becoming destructive rage. Greene's laws aren't abstract principles but practical tools for navigating life's most challenging situations. When facing conflict, understanding the role of narcissism in aggression helps you de-escalate rather than inadvertently triggering greater hostility. When building a team, recognizing how envy operates beneath the surface helps you create structures that channel competitive energy productively rather than destructively. When pursuing goals, knowing how your own fear of failure operates helps you push through resistance that would otherwise derail your efforts. Perhaps most valuable is Greene's insight into the transformative power of purpose. Humans naturally seek meaning beyond themselves, and those who align with a genuine purpose tap into extraordinary reserves of energy, resilience, and influence. This isn't about superficial mission statements, but discovering what Viktor Frankl called the why that enables you to bear almost any how. Purpose transforms work from obligation to calling, relationships from transactions to meaningful connections, and challenges from burdens to opportunities for growth. The path to mastering human nature begins with ruthless self-examination. What unconscious patterns drive your reactions? What childhood experiences shaped your current approach to conflict, intimacy, or authority? What shadow qualities do you deny in yourself but react strongly to in others? This internal work isn't comfortable, but creates the foundation for authentic power, influence based on genuine understanding rather than manipulation or force. With self-knowledge as your base, you can then develop the perspective-taking abilities that Greene considers essential for navigating social reality. By temporarily setting aside your own viewpoint to fully understand another's, You develop empathic accuracy, the ability to grasp not just what others say, but what truly motivates them. This skill transforms conflicts from zero-sum battles into opportunities for mutual gain and converts opposition into alliance. The final stage of mastery comes in developing what Greene calls the law of the sublime, moving beyond the petty concerns of ego to connect with something larger than yourself. Whether through creative work, service to others, or spiritual practice, this transcendence of self-absorption represents the highest expression of human potential. Those who achieve it exert a magnetism that can't be manufactured through technique alone. Greene's laws aren't quick fixes or manipulative tactics, but invitations to profound self-transformation. The journey isn't easy. It requires confronting uncomfortable truths, developing difficult skills, and practicing constant vigilance against our tendency towards self-deception. Yet the alternative is far worse, remaining blind to the forces that shape our lives and relationships, doomed to repeat the same patterns while expecting different results. By understanding human nature, in all its irrationality, contradiction, and occasional glory, we gain freedom from its unconscious influence. We stop reacting mechanically to triggers designed for a world that no longer exists. We cease being confused by behaviors that follow ancient patterns. We become capable of genuine choice rather than predetermined response. This is the ultimate promise of Greene's work. Not control over others, but mastery over ourselves. Not manipulation, but authentic influence. Not denial of our nature, but integration of its disparate elements into a coherent whole. By understanding the laws that have governed human behavior throughout history, we don't become less human, but more fully realized in our humanity, conscious participants in patterns that otherwise control us from the shadows. The question isn't whether human nature will influence your life. It's whether you'll recognize and work with these forces or remain unconsciously controlled by them. The laws await your discovery. The choice is yours.